Okay. So this is our mock FOA.
So this is our thesis. Geographical stereotypes are sometimes used with the intent of generalizing and better understanding other countries using humor. However, the use of this stereotype often results in fear and racism.
Trump and Islamophobia. Islamophobia is the dislike or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force. In our presentation, we are going to be talking about how Trump has Islamophobia and how he's transferring it onto the American citizen.
Islamophobia before Trump. Most people think that Islamophobia comes from terrorism done by Muslims. That may be a cause for the few, as most people have Islamophobia thanks to the media, which is extremely biased, as well as how our government responds to certain situations. Before 9/11, people had a 59% favorable opinion of Muslims. After 9/11, favorable opinions had gone down to 45%. George W. Bush played a huge part in the way Islamophobia affected the United States. The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam.
Okay, Islamophobia after Trump. Social media can be used to spread hate messages and help hate groups. Trump and his administration have said things that could cause others to fear the Islam religion. Trump also said he was considering closing all mosques in the U.S. following the Paris attacks. We are not loved by many Muslims. Trump also made the statement, there is a sickness, they are sick people, there's a sickness going on. There's a group of people that is very sick when he was asked about whether his travel ban would include a Muslim from Canada. The world according to Donald Trump. Young kids are growing up listening to Trump and how he sees the world. Though it may be humorous, the kids will see the way Trump sees it through transfer, and that will cause the kids to be afraid of others from around the world. As you can see, this is his stereotypes of around the world. The photo was created by someone who is not a Trump supporter and does not agree with his opinions. The creator is trying to highlight the racist generalizations that Trump makes that are creating a lot of racism in the US. Like in Canada, it says softies. People usually think Canadians are softies, like they say sorry all the time. They're too nice. And then Russia is the ISIS slayers, according to him. And then China's the wall experts, because we all know Trump wants to build a wall between Mexico and the United States to stop immigration. And then Africa, the middle part of Africa, is Obama's homeland. Colors, humorously intended words, and small graphic images draw attention to the generalizations made by Trump that are being transferred to the audience through this image. You can see that on the image there's little male genitalia, and that symbolizes the Trump Tower. You can definitely tell that this was made by someone who is not a Trump supporter, because people who are not Trump supporters usually would call him a dick. So male genitalia has the Trump Towers. The phrase terrorist and more terrorists on the map is used to demonstrate Trump's belief that those in the East are terrorists. This shows that Trump has a fear, Islamophobia, and is trying to transfer that belief to the rest of the United States through the racial generalizations he makes. Another example of where Trump creates very strong racism and fear is in comments he makes about Mexico. On the map it states rapists over Mexico. Trump is against immigration from Mexico into the U.S., so he generalizes all Mexicans using a serious label that he intends both to be humorous, but he also believes to be very true.
So now I'm going to play a video about Trump and his proposal to ban Muslims entering the United States.
Talk about the reason why a lot of Republican leaders are say they're expressing such anxiousness these days, and that is your call Monday for a, quote, total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S. There's now some polling information, and you cite polls all the time. You say, what can you go by if not the polls? And a majority of Americans, 58%, reject this call, reject this proposal to ban Muslims from entering the U.S. Now, I know your supporters agree with you, but this is a poll of the American people writ large.
I didn't do it for polls, so I don't really care what the polls say. I didn't do it for polls. Now, my polls happen to have gone up a lot since this announcement. A lot of people thought it would go down. I didn't do it for that reason. But with that being understood, when you're getting a phone call from a polling agency and they're saying, well, you support, the banning of Muslims, etc., you think they're going to say, who's going to say yes? I don't think the polls are accurate. At the same time, I have many friends that are Muslims, and I will tell you, they are so happy that I did this because they know they have a problem. There is a problem.
Your Muslim friends are
Radicalized.
happy.
I have many friends, and at the highest level, and they're grateful. I have partners that are Muslim. I have unbelievable relations.
They support a ban on Muslims entering the U.S.
They said no. They said it's about time that somebody spoke up as to radicalism. You have radicalism in this country. It's here, and it's trying to come through. I just read where ISIS has gotten a hold of a passport printing machine for the migrants to get them into the United States. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. It's an early report. But how crazy are we allowing ourselves to be subject to this kind of terror?
I don't think anyone doubts that radical Islam is a big problem. But I think the question is your proposed solution a good thing or not? Let me just...
Well, in my solution, it's a temporary solution.
Until when?
Obviously, till we get our hands around the problem. We have a real problem. We have people coming into the country, getting into airplanes and flying them into the World Trade Center. Look at Russia. That was a problem. I mean, with the airplane coming down, we have all over. You look at California, this woman comes in, this horrendous woman comes into the country, radicalized. She gets through on a fiancé passport. I never even heard of a fiancé visa. But she comes in, she's with the guy, and they just killed 14 people with more to come because there are people so badly hurt that they're going to be dying also. So we have to get our act together. Again, my relationship with the Muslim community is excellent. I've had people call me at the highest level saying you're doing us a favor because they know they have a problem very well. I mean, they really know
But they don't support the ban, you said. They don't support stopping all Muslims.
They just like the idea that somebody's talking about it. Nobody talks about it. It's not politically correct. It's like the guy that saw all the bombs lying on the floor of the apartment in California. He didn't want to do it. You know why he didn't want to do it? He didn't want to report them, which is nonsense. He said it was racial profiling.
I think that was a story it was from a local CBS about a woman who had seen a lot of young Arab or Muslim men.
I don't know. I don't believe. Honestly, do you believe a racial profiling? So
but that was about a group of...
Because they didn't want to be accused of racial profiling.
But they didn't see bombs, is the point. It was because they saw a lot of young Muslim men.
They saw something. They didn't want to call because they thought they didn't want to be accused of racial profiling. It sounds like a lawyer gave that idea.
Well, let's talk about this from a national security perspective, because I was talking to an official who said, look, suppose there's a 22-year-old Muslim American out there who is already feeling alienated, and he turns on the TV and he sees the leading Republican presidential candidate by far saying total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S., and the room goes crazy.
By the way, it's not total and complete, and it's temporary, but let me just say, you're going to have exceptions.
A quote, total and complete.
You're going to have exceptions. You're going to have people coming in, and you're going to get people in.
Okay, but let me just finish my question, which is, this 22-year-old sees that, and what the official said to me is, do you think that 22-year-old, seeing Donald Trump saying that with all those people cheering, do you think that disenfranchised, disaffected 22-year-old Muslim American is less or more likely to turn to ISIS?
We got to stop the problem. We can talk about it. We can talk about it forever. There's a real problem, and it's called radical Islamic
Are you making
terrorism.
it worse?
Wait a minute. And we have, look, what's worse? Is it worse when they shoot 14 people and kill 14 people and many others laying in the hospital? What about in Paris, where they have hundreds of people dead in Paris? Same thing, it's Paris, but same thing. And many more people going to die. They're laying in the hospital practically dead. We gotta stop the problem. There's a...
So that was an interview posted by CNN on YouTube, which makes it a pretty prevalent thing in the media because it was both on TV and then it was also on YouTube. This is a more direct way that Trump can transfer his opinion onto the U.S. citizens because they see it on TV and on YouTube and they're like, oh, that's okay. This video is addressing Trump's plan to ban all Muslims from entering the United States. He believes that this so-called temporary and also total and complete plan to remove all Muslims from the U.S. will get the problem we have under control. He contradicts himself in the statement because originally he said that the ban was going to be total and complete, but during this interview he goes back on that and says that it is only temporary and that there will be a lot of exceptions. But that is not completely true because he originally said it was going to be total and complete, so it makes it makes it seem less credible because he's going back on what he said originally to make himself seem less rude about it. This video further expresses Trump's opinion on Muslim culture. One thing he says to get his opinion across to the interviewer and also the audience is, we have a real problem. We have people coming into the country and getting into planes and flying them into the World Trade Center. This statement is used to show that Trump believes that all Muslims are participants in terrorism and that as Americans we should be afraid of what they are capable of because of 9/11. Saying this may have been used to transfer his fear onto U.S. citizens. He's saying that because he personally believes that all Muslims are terrorists, that there's no exceptions. Which is... Let me pause it. He believes that all problems in the United States are due to terrorists, but that is not true because, and some examples of this are the shooting that happened in Vegas about a month ago, and then also a shooting that happened in Chicago yesterday that where a little 3-year-old boy died. Both of those are instances in which Americans were at fault, not Muslims, so that shows that not only Americans can also cause havoc. Muslims aren't the fault for all the United States' problems. Lastly, another thing he says in the video is that he has Muslim friends that have agreed with him and say that Trump is doing them a favor because they really do have a quote-unquote problem. He very vaguely speaks about this in an attempt to make himself seem less Islamophobic, but it comes off as very shallow compared to all the other solid, concrete comments he makes, so it makes it seem like he's just making it up to make himself look like a better person, even though people know that he's not all that great a person. Go.
Okay, so with all of this, with Trump and geographical stereotypes, and he's using transfer to push his opinions onto the American citizens, so everyone will end up seeing the world the way he sees it. Like Canadians as softies, South America as the Miss Universe farms, Mexico as rapists, Russia as ISIS slayers, Mongolia as Asian Mexicans, Japan as people who love skyscrapers, the Middle East as terrorists, and what is that? And Indonesia as more terrorists. People they'll think of Australia as its opera in the desert, and that is the way Trump will have the world be seen.